is up, sexy people? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from UK Battle Doom legends Conan. The band's new album, Violence Dimension, will be released on April 25th via Heavy Psych Sounds. So, Conan's Doom is singular, carved of granite. Yes, of course, there have been changes since guitarist vocalist John Davis founded the group in 2006, but the intention at the time toward superlative heavy, tonal extremity, wrought with impressionist lyrics, stripping ideas to the core where sometimes the whole line is just one word, they've always called it Caveman Battle Doom. Remains at the root of everything they've done since, and across 5 studio records in the decade from 2012 to 2022, Conan have set the standard by which much of heavy anything is judged, and in comparison, most is found wanting. In 2024, Conan signed to Heavy Psych Sounds as a recognised name and one of the foremost acts of their generation, wildly influential in their home country of the UK and well beyond, headliners in practice and theory alike. Their 5th LP, 2022's Evidence of Immortality, brought a dark ambience to coincide with its outright attack, with experiments in dark wave and synth adding breadth to the stated root purpose of Oral Force. It's never been harder to guess where the next few years might take their sound, but whatever's coming, Conan will make it kill. The better part of 2 decades later, their reliability remains unshakable, which you want when your band is so heavy that the floor and your ribcage both start to vibrate. Violence affects our daily life, perhaps more than love or kindness ever will. We are all bound by death, whether we like it or not. This release explores the hinterland between being sacred to live and being scared to die. Being scared to live and being scared to die, and punches holes in the idea that we must live our life by one set of rules. We all live in the violence dimension, and there is no escape. The album was recorded and produced by former bassist vocalist Chris Fielding at Full Studios. So, album, what are we on now? Six. So a first album with new bassist Dave Riley, formerly of legendary 90s sludge band Fudge Tunnel. And I mean, I feel like there's not much need for us to go into the depths of our love for this band. We have
from 2012. That's like when they were like, since the first album, we've been there. So
we've been with them for a long time. We interviewed Chris on the last album, and then we interviewed John in Glasgow last year at King Tut's. Our history goes way back.
A decade before that, we interviewed the band in Glasgow. So right. Round the block and round again. Here we are.
Yes,
one more time, dear friends.
When we were in Glasgow last year, though, and spoke to John, he may have whispered a little preview of the album name in our ear, and I must admit, when he said the words Violence Dimension, I just about nutted at the table, Duncan. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I was carrying your camera bag over my lap, so I was fine. I had to think about like calming things.
What a name!
like trigonometry. It's my safe word as well.
Right. Violence Dimension. So before we get into the review, technically 7 tracks long, clocks in at 47 minutes. However, we did get the bonus version to review, which had an extra track, and it's long. So the CD vinyl physical version will be 8 tracks and 59 minutes in length. So, Violence Dimension. What do we make of it? We've been listening to this for a little while, so had plenty of time to check this one out. What did you think? What did you make of this new album from Conan?
Yeah, not that I want to go around the place just saying that we're better friends with the band than you, but we got the album like 2 months ago or something. So like a while ago, and I listened to it as soon as it came in, and then I was like to Dave, have you listened to it? And Dave's like, I've got like so much stuff to listen to. I will listen to it nearer the actual release date. And I was like, we're playing that game, are we? I will triple. No, I'm only joking. I put it on the shelf until like about 2 weeks ago because I knew it was going to be on the docket eventually for us.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've just used exactly the same sentence on the previous review, but Conan are a band that I excitedly look forward to the next release to find out what the new element is they've added. Right, every album, it's like they are Neo learning. Now I know kung fu. Now I can fucking fly a helicopter. It's that sort of thing where they come back with a new skill every album, and it can be a subtle skill. We've mentioned it before. Sometimes it's just the introduction of an attack snare.
Yeah.
And slight pace change, and you're like, this album is completely different.
Blast
beat. Sometimes it's a blast beat, and it's like they're just ripping up the rule book, just fucking throwing sheets of paper everywhere. Last album, it was a kind of combination of blast beats, and then like this moment that genuinely floored me was kind of analogy, like 16-minute synth-laden doom track, which was like honestly is how I want to go out. So when they're wheeling my casket up to the great fire, that's the track that I want played. So if you let my family know that, I'm sure they'll be overjoyed. I also want recorded evidence, and here it is. Hi, bye. Yeah, like there's always going to be a lot of questions of how heavy is heavy for Conan. Like how do you top the heaviest thing you've heard with the heaviest thing you've heard? Like there's a certain tipping point where it can't do that. And weirdly, like I think Conan have plateaued in the most like satisfying way, and I don't necessarily think this is any heavier than anything they've done before, but the production makes this a really interesting listen. Let's talk about John's vocals for a start. Less reverb on them. And I'm going to say his best performance on an album to date. I actually fucking adore his vocals here. They're really, really, really strong. We get a slight bit of backing vocals from ex-Fudge Tunnel bassist. I think it's on the second to last track or the last track. It's in a very deep register. I'm assuming it's his backing vocals.
He's on it. There's a couple of tracks he's on. But
that's where it fucking floored me when that came in on that particular track. But like he has a much deeper register. It's really, really fucking good. Once again, adds an element to their sound. On top of that, with the vocal performances, it is a little bit, and this is one of two times I'm going to mention this, it reminded me a little bit of Max Cavalera. I'm not going to lie. Kind of fucking loved it. Along with some of the riffs on this album remind me of kind of the heavier Sepultura moments of kind of the early 90s, which I know he's a big fan of. He's like they've now toured with something that Max did, I think, or they played on a festival with them or whatever.
I think they joined them on stage for something, I'm sure.
Covered like a Nail Bomb song or something like that, which is fucking absolutely amazing. So like I've noticed that influence work its way through in some of the riffings. Not to say it's like fast, seppy sort of thrash riffs, but those kind of slower grooves that Sepultura would do. There's almost a bit where I honestly, there's a riff on here that is two steps. It's the ugly red-headed stepchild of it's just got that groove of it. It just made me fucking smile. The guitar tone as well, it sounds uglier but more polished. Like I don't know how that's possible. It's like tonally it's clearer, but it's still retaining all that fucking dank fuzz. It's bizarre. The bass sits impeccable in the mix, and the drums sound fucking huge. So once again, another stellar production. We've come to expect that. There's a reason Conan have went to their ex-bassist to record the album, because one, they're still friends with him. There was no animosity when they split up, and plus he's a guy that kind of has now refined that ability to. I also think he kind of forces them to, like the way John was talking, if it was up to him, nothing would ever be written, like finished. It would all just be riffs kind of floating around. I think they've got a working relationship where it focuses them. There's a conscious choice here on the album as well to go for longer form songs over some of the previous ones. Now, that's not to say there aren't shorter songs. I think the shortest Conan song on history is on this album, clocking in at a whopping 46 seconds, which is kind of mind blowing. But for the most part, like every song here, minus two, are like 9+ minute tracks, are like, you know, like well over the 5 minute mark. And they follow a formula, but a formula that I love, and that they introduced this fucking huge monolithic heavy riff, like just this big old disgusting dank thing, and then it'll hit a stop, and then the next riff comes in, and there's a bit of bounce. When I say bounce, it's a slow bounce, but there's a bit of bounce, and then you get what is ostensibly the groove verse riff with fucking huge choruses, like just massive, like snap a plane, chop down a fucking mountain with the back of my hand, like just fucking huge sounding vocals, but when you've got like the kind of Joe vocals or something like a Desolation Hex sitting over a riff that's just, it sounds detuned to fuck, but I know that they don't detune to like levels that are, it's just like proper recorded sounds, like style and playing essentially in amps. You kind of realize that Conan have that in the pocket and could do it whenever they want, which is, I think, allowed them a little bit more of an opportunity to experiment with that slower groove, that mid-pace verse delivery. So you've got those, when it goes back into a slower groove for the interlude section or whatever, you kind of feel that space in a track. I don't know if they've ever really done that a huge amount before on albums consistently. They've usually appeared on whatever tracks became the singles, and for obvious reasons, something a bit bouncier, but they'll languish a lot. This album, whilst it takes a lot of time and goes into the weeds, and kind of experiments with just like ugly tones, I kind of felt like every track always had an eye back to like some like big old like fucking verse groove. And they never lose sight on it in any song here, which is kind of fucking awesome. And that's like, once again, that's years of them playing in a band, but also I kind of feel like there's maybe a renewed confidence in this particular lineup, which is forcing that. We saw them live at Tuts, supporting Orange Goblin last year, which is where we interviewed John. And I came out of that thinking that was probably my favourite Conan performance, whilst it wasn't their heaviest performance. Nothing will ever top Bannerman's for me. Like when they played something like Fohammer, for example, when we heard it in there with the better production live, it just sounded even more fucking decimating. And that's kind of what we have here. With some of that rough edge just smoothed off, some of that cleaner tone experimented with and brought out, it somehow has made the album sound fucking heavier, whilst it not being heavier, which is what I was saying before. It's that thing of we've plateaued, but all we've done is changed a few ways in the productional sound, and it still sounds heavier but cleaner in a way which it probably shouldn't. And like, to me, this is, in my opinion, this is my favourite production they've had to date. I absolutely adore it. The flow of the album, you've got like back-to-back 9-minute tracks on Total Bicep, which is, I mean, come on, what are we doing here for names of tracks? And Violence Dimension, two like huge, weighty, long fucking songs. And I will tell you now, I never felt any 1 second of that went over, and it actually flew in for me. The first listen to this at its hour run length with its bonus track, the first listen to me when it finished, I was kind of like, is that it? And I was looking down, I'm like, it's a fucking hour long. Just like honestly does not feel its length at all. Whereas I felt in the past, once again, for previous Conan albums, there'll maybe one track in there which is deliberately long that maybe loses me a little bit, or you know, I'm not fully locked in. I could not throw that this way at all. I actually thought the flow on the album was kind of fucking impeccable. Title track Violence Dimension is one of two tracks that I really want to just kind of note out for like a bit of a examination. It's a long form track. It comes after Total Bicep, which is heavy as fuck. And Violence Dimension really fucking takes its time Like really takes his time, and a really satisfying, clean guitar tone, wee bit reverb, wee bit spacey room, wee bit kind of fucking boner material, and it's the prime example of a track that builds. This is a Herculean. I've got a giant weight on my back, and I'm going to climb this fucking mountain step by step, and like every step, it's going to get a little bit heavier, and a little bit heavier, and a little bit heavier, and even when it gets to like a peak and then drops back down and kind of does a wee swoony swoon, and then picks back up again. It is fucking awesome. Like, and I selfishly, I would have loved to have heard some of those spacey synths over it. They're not doing that this album, and they have a other release where there's plenty of spacey synths, so go and listen to that. But it was gargantuan riff after gargantuan riff, and just kept building and building. And it was fucking awesome. And it lands right in the middle of the album, and like wipes the fucking album slate clean in preparation for the back half, of which things just continue to fucking pummel. I'm going to hold off on talking about Vortexian, which is because it's the bonus track, and also that face. I was like, is this the end of that Sugar Horse album? But the proper album closer, as the original fucking thing, is Oceans of Boiling Skin. Fucking incredible name for a song. And finishes the album with like pure blunt throat sludgy doomy trauma. It's fucking incredible. So yeah, I'm in a position where Conan are almost 20 years into their career as a band. This is album number 6. We've been with them over a decade now. We've seen them live 3 times. And they're another band that I just kind of feel like are maybe just hitting their stride. I say that every Conan album. This is the album, they're hitting their stride. And I feel that way again. I kind of feel like this is the one that opens the door to new fans. This is the one that gets them on bigger bills. This is the one that continues to grow. Heavy Psych is a perfect record label for them. That label is going to have a ton of bands on the lighter side that they could easily play with, but also bands that are on the kind of Conan level of heaviness that they could easily slot against. So I'm kind of hoping for more kind of tomfoolery, a little bit shenanigans and fuckery, maybe a Church of Misery Conan gig. Could you dream gig booker? That's my job title. But yeah, like I don't know why I sound exacerbated or surprised by this. Like we've been calling this now for over a decade, and they continue to deliver. I don't know if this is my favourite Conan album, right? I've had longer with the other ones, but this is right fucking up there. And this was right up there at the end of the first listen, where other ones have taken time to settle and, I've had to find my bearings or whatever. This was instant hit for me, like song after song after song. And a lot of that's to do with the focus, the songwriting, but more importantly, John's best performance, the production, and all the cool shit they're doing. It's fucking great. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm a mark for this band. I'm fully aware of that. Don't care. Yeah, John, if you're listening to this, I fucking love this. I thought this was absolutely brilliant. Again, I'll never get tired of saying I think Conan are fucking absolutely incredible, and long may that continue. Dave, did the title, which made you quote unquote nut, did it live up? Did the album live up to the title for you? And if so, how so?
I mean, like, I feel like this album kind of fits the narrative. Like, I mean, if you call your album Violence Dimension, chances are it's going to be an absolute head stomper, right? And it is. Like, this is when my first listen to this, all I could think of, and I wrote down or typed down, it felt like Conan at their most primitive is how I felt this album was. Yeah, there's bits of it that will, reminded me of a kind of early, older kind of Conan kind of character. Even in the production, I feel like the production for me, this it's not quite as kind of shined up as evidence of immortality. And not that the album was super clean or anything like that, but this feels grittier for me in tone. Especially, we're going to talk a lot about the bass on this album.
The bass
from Dave Riley. I feel like he's brought a new level to the Conan sound. This his bass tone is something a bit kind of grittier, kind of like it's sludgy, but it's almost kind of like in the kind of noise rock kind of territory as well, where you can hear
it's got attitude. You know what I mean? It's like there's a snarly attitude behind it.
You can hear every little like clank and thump that he plays. And I think like part of that is obviously down to the incredible skills of Chris Fielding, who has once again like killed it in the production. But I love the fact that Chris doesn't like just fire out the same production that he did on the previous album. This album has its own kind of sound, its own identity, like every album should. And I love that. Once again, I lost count how many times I said, "Oh fuck, here we go." Like I honestly, it was like every track I was like, there were so many moments on this album where a riff comes in and you can just tell in the build up that it's about to just level everything. And like Foeman's Flesh as an opener is like perfect. Like it's had like little hints of like Blood Eagle and a little bit of like Revengeance, but also moments where I felt like kind of riffs wise, John was taking things slightly higher up the neck, giving you a little bit more variation on that front. It's not a track that just sits within the kind of bottom 2 or 3 frets.
Moving up as well means that the drop sounds
exactly does, and when those like when they drop to those like bottom 2 frets at the end of the track, and like Foeman's Flesh gives you an almighty kick in the nads, like Conan style, right at the end.
Punches you right in your Foeman's Flesh.
Yeah,
I mean,
kicking the conads.
if that isn't, if like, that doesn't make the press, right? Then I don't know. I don't kicking the conads. Oh, that's the best thing fucking ever.
Yeah, and like I mean the first half of the album is just pummeling. Like it just, I mean, Desolation Hex is much shorter than the opener. I can't even talk now after that. But like, and it just churns out like devastating riff one after another.
Much shorter at 5 minutes 20 seconds.
But it was cool to hear like a bit of backing vocals on this one, which I'm assuming is Dave because it's a kind of more kind of low end kind of.
I think you're right. I assumed it was John at first, but I think you're probably right. Like I say, I think it's Oceans of Boiling Skin was the one where it's so clearly in Dave's register that like, I just assumed.
Right. Yeah,
but no, I think
I think he's on there.
Be right. You might be right, actually.
I heard him a few times. The 2 tones are different. So I'd assume it's him, but it's a fairly straight track. I mean, it doesn't go in any unexpected directions, but it still has enough like switches just to keep you engaged. And I liked that they ended the track with something quicker in tempo rather than like the obvious kind of like slow and kind of crushing route. Total Bicep, amazing name. That closes out what would be kind of side 1 of the vinyl, and it's fucking
of the vinyl that Dave's gonna buy.
It's fucking awesome. So many, like what I liked about this track was there was some really nice ideas rhythmically and the kind of timing going on, which was cool. Not something they tend to do like often, but it's that those parts were well placed in with other sections that are kind of like 4/4 and very kind of head bangable. Killer ending. Loved hearing the bass kind of walk around a bit at the end of that track, and it leads up brilliantly into the title track, which is the kind of first track on side 2. This track was a kind of a surprise for me. Wasn't expecting it to go out so atmospheric. It's quite haunting, it's really slow and a nice kind of like doomy kind of middle piece of the album. There's no vocals until the end riff, which will just like split your anus when that happens, or your conanus. I don't know. I was going with that one.
I don't know. It's not as good as Conad's. Conad's has ruined us. That's the greatest thing that's ever happened in the history of recording this entire thing.
But the vocals at the end, I'm sure that's Dave at the end of that track.
I think you might be right.
The tone is just like really is like lethal. I love the tone. It's really throaty and quite kind of gruff sounding. Thought it was really cool. And then the second half is just like more of everything. Like this album, like it has no like surprise synths. This is like it's direct and it hits you kind of head on. It feels like Conan kind of at their most kind of rabid. And like if you need further proof of that, then listen to track 6, Warp Sword, which is like just 46 seconds of blistering speed and venom. Like love that track. Like wasn't expecting it again either. Ocean of Boiling Skin though may have my favorite riff. The rhythm and the kind of halftime groove is just epic on that track. The middle part where it goes to like kind of eerie and kind of atmospheric with just that big like filthy bass, also amazing. But it closes out on an absolutely mighty riff that just repeats over and over, which is awesome. And it totally works like as a closing track to the kind of standard album. Absolutely works. I can see why that would be like the end of the standard release. However, on the physical release, we also have an extra track called Vortexian.
Yes.
With 2 X's. And I'm not entirely sure. I might be just reaching here, but like there's a track on Existential Void Guardian called Vexagon, which also has 2 X's. I'm not sure if that's a reference or if just like we like adding 2 X's to our song titles. I don't know. It could be.
John doesn't know how to spell.
Maybe. But like Vortexian is totally different to Vexagon, so they don't. Just about they don't particularly sound the same. But this is really just like 12 minutes of fucking feedback and weird.
This is what bonus tracks should be. Like, can I just stress? Like, see when bands do bonus tracks and it's like a cover song. I fucking hate that.
Oh, fuck off with your cover song.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, here's a cover of a New Order song, or it's a deep cut that we want to cover. And so, but we can't release it on the album because everyone will be like, oh, look, they're the obvious cover. So we'll just release it on the bonus version.
Yeah.
If I buy a bonus version of an album, it's because I want to hear more from the band. I don't want to hear the band play someone else's song, right? I fucking hate that. First pet peeve. Second thing is, I don't want to hear a song as well, which is just like a lesser version of what I've already heard. So we wrote 14 songs, and we could only put 13 on the album. So here's this 14 songs. So basically, you're giving me the reject song as a bonus. Like, I'd fuck that as well.
Yeah.
What I want from my bonus tracks is 12 minutes. Of just fucking like head fuckery feedback. That's what I want, Dave.
Yep.
And that's that. You know, I'm like this is worth buying the vinyl just for this.
Yeah, I mean, I like. Funny you should say the performance we saw at King Tut's. Kind of translates or transfers into this album like almost identically. Like it very much reminded me of that live performance, and that track at the end feels like we're putting our guitars away, the feedback still ringing out. It felt like the end of a live set kind of thing. So for me it worked. I mean, it's 12 minutes. I don't know I don't know if you need to go like 12 minutes worth,
I could have doubled it. Sugar horse it. That's what I say. Hashtag sugar horse it. Minimum 24 minutes.
But yeah, I liked it. I did like the little addition of that on the end. I thought it worked with the album itself. Like Violence Dimension, another like fucking awesome release from Conan. It kind of, there was no like major surprises. It kind of does what it says on the tin, Violence Dimension. These tracks are just loaded with like huge riffs, really like filthy production. And as we've already said, like it's going to rip live, like absolutely. This will transfer on the live stage perfectly. Was I like overly surprised here with anything? Not really, but I was still like massively satisfied after listening to the album. I think Dave brings a new kind of edginess to the sound, which really works. I think his vocal tone and his addition there, I think is great. I'd say use it even more. Like I think he's got a really cool tone. I love the little moment that we're kind of playing with new ideas kind of rhythmically. That little switch on Total Bicep was awesome. And like as you said, it kind of makes the more like direct stuff sound even heavier when they do that. Yeah, I mean, like Conan never disappoint. Like if this is your introduction to Conan, it's not a bad place to start, to be honest. It has kind of everything, and it's hugely rewarding. Like I could spin this like anytime. This is an anytime album for me. Yeah, again, like job well done, lads. Fantastic. Okay, so final thing, scores for Violence Dimension by by Conan on Heavy Psych Sounds. What are you scoring this one?
Watch me be a shell for the band. 5. So, like, I've worked this out. Like, of the Conan albums, I think 2 have got 5 stars from me, and the rest are all at the 4.5 mark.
Yeah.
And like I say, whilst I don't know if this is my favourite Conan album because I've not had years and years with it yet. But it sits right up there with them. This is like the one that I took to the most immediate of anything I've done before. Like in terms of by the time it finished, I was just like that. Yeah, this is instant. Like I am not. I can go back through, delve through some of the nuances of what they've done, but instantly from start to finish, I just like it fully connected with me. I wouldn't change a second of this. I love the bonus track, so I would say get the version as the bonus track, even though it is just feedback. Fucking do it. It's feedback, but there's tonal feedback. There is stuff happening.
Yeah.
They're not just leaving their guitars, then he's occasionally touching a string. But it's fucking awesome. I think this is absolutely brilliant. And the last thing I want to say is, never mentioned the artwork. Once again, artwork, fucking incredible on this release. Everyone's a joy to look at. It's probably my favourite artwork they've ever done.
Nice.
I think it's just, it sums up the album to a T. It's 3 kind of pig at you, imagine it's Conan walking up giant steps up the side of a fucking mountain, which is the album feels like it's dragging like all the riffs up, and there are these celestial doors to, you would imagine, the Violence Dimension, and who's peeking through? A fucking skull with twinkly eye. Sold 5. Give them all the 5s.
Wow. I'm a 4.5. That was my
disappointment. Is what
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I kicking your conads.
Yeah, that was my kind of gut instinct listening to this album. It wasn't as instant for me as some of the others. I felt like the last album grabbed me a bit quicker than this one. And I think there's maybe a couple albums I'd put above this. But like it's marginal, very marginal. Still a fucking killer album, and one that I expect I'll come back to a lot. I'm spinning that vinyl. But yeah, my gut feeling this one was 4.5. That's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to stick with my instinct on this one. As much as you want me to give it a 5, and I'm
just going to say that your instinct stinks. So.
I'm tempted because you've given it a 5. I want to give it a 5, but I'm going to stick.
No,
with my instinct.
One of us loves the band, the other one is Dave.
Kicking the conads. Violence Dimension out on April 25th on Heavy Psych Sounds. Links below to the band, to the pre-order. I'll put one of the singles in there so you can check it out. Have a listen, see what you think. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
I kind of liked Conanus as well. I think that would work.
No, it was a bad one.
Okay,
Conads.
Sorry.